From Las Vegas, Nevada, we welcome you to the podcast Real Estate Talk with JC Castillo. JC Castillo and guest.
Good morning, Las Vegas. My name is JC Castillo. We're starting here, Real Estate Talk with JC Castillo and his guest. We are here today, March the 4th. Unbelievable how quickly the date is going. We are in studio here at Equity Title Studios, starting this podcast. And today I am very excited about the guest that we're going to be having. We're going to be talking about a different type of real estate that we have here in our industry or in our city. And we're going to go ahead and give the introduction to my guest. So we're going to go ahead and introduce Jennifer. Jennifer, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me, JC. How are you?
I'm doing excellent.
Great.
I'm doing excellent. So Jennifer, if you don't mind, please sharing with us, your first name, last name, the company you work with, how long you've been in the real estate industry, and then we'll start our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jennifer Weineberg. I grew up in Las Vegas, and I have been a licensee since 2000, so going on 26 years now. Started at Prudential, and I am still with them, currently known as Berkshire Hathaway.
Wow, that is unbelievable. Yeah. Talk about, being stable in a company. Because I remember when Prudential Americana was still around back in 2001 and everything, and they made that transition to Berkshire Hathaway. So you have been one of those pioneers at Berkshire Hathaway.
Well, I have come and gone a couple times,
okay.
But it is home for me now. I will not leave. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And you know what? Let's start with that. How important is to have a great support system that is your company? Because I know that a lot of people say, well, you know what, I want to work with Jennifer. Jennifer is great and everything. But for you as a real estate professional, how important is to have a really good, solid, support system as your company when you're doing, transactions in real estate out there?
It means a lot, and that's the reason I stay. And I think a lot of the top producers, we get that question asked a lot: is why do we stay? We can go anywhere we need to go. Well, Berkshire Hathaway, in my opinion, offers the most tools to make you successful and gives me the most support that I need. We also have general in-house attorney, which, is very important to us, and, when you need him. So the support that we get from our brokerage is just, it's unbelievable.
And that is really important because the type of real estate that you do is, I don't know if we could call it non-traditional because you don't do a lot of residential, real estate. Explain to me the type of real estate that you have been involved in this past many years and what is your expertise, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out in residential, probably like everybody else. Yeah. And around year 7, 8, I decided that I wanted to be a business broker. So that's when I actually left the company to become a business broker because, as most people know, Berkshire Hathaway isn't. We do have commercial, but not really business acquisition. Okay. So I left the company to learn business acquisition, came back, but after that, I became a full commercial agent. So I actually do everything: business acquisition, retail, land, office, all industrial, and leasing, selling buildings, and selling the business as well.
That is a total master within itself. Let's be honest, right?
And then come full circle. I actually teach now at LVR for CE. So I'm teaching now commercial classes and how to be a business broker. Very cool.
And that is really important because, again, one of the segments that we don't hear much about, but it really is a big part of our industry is the, commercial side, the business, purchase and selling of real estate, because really that's what you're doing. You're not only just buying the business, but also you're buying the real estate sometimes. Correct. Or you're leasing long term. I don't think the general public really understands that is a big part of our market. And it is affected as well with whatever's happening in the residential market, right? Because everybody always talks about residential. Oh my God, the interest rate here, the sales price and everything. But it also comes down to your side of the real estate world where, it's impacted by, interest rates. It's impacted by money and loans and cash buyers and all of this stuff. So you were telling me earlier before we jump in the air that your expertise is restaurants.
Restaurants. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that, because that is very interesting. Because everybody thinks like, oh, I want to become a restaurant owner, and it's going to be an easy path, and it's probably not.
A lot to it.
Yes.
A lot to it.
Yes.
I do specialize in restaurants, and I do sell pretty much everything. But restaurants, I seem to keep maybe 7 to 10 listings at any given time.
Oh wow!
But restaurants are they're probably the most popular asset that trades in Las Vegas, and I brought some stats maybe I can share with you guys on this podcast as far as business acquisitions go. But restaurants themselves, you have to think about it this way. If you were to go build a restaurant, just a grease trap and a hood costs $70,000, give or take, right?
Yes, correct.
So you're looking at a restaurant that's already built out. So that owner has already gone in and spent, $300 to $1 million, $300 to $1 million, depending if it's fast casual or, a nice dine-in restaurant, right?
Okay.
It costs a lot of money to go in and build that out, put your FF&E, your furniture, fixtures, equipment, your kitchen. Imagine how much a hood costs. It's 17 feet long. It's very expensive. So you're going in, I'm coming in, the restaurant's not making it. They've already spent all this money, to build the infrastructure.
Right.
And now it's on the market for $150,000.
Really?
That you can come in, buy this restaurant that maybe was one type of, cuisine that wasn't making it. You come in with another type of cuisine and you're off to the races, change the paint color, change a few things, and you're off to the races. You just saved yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes, because we were talking again, right before we jump in the air, we were talking about how, people seem to sometimes love the fact that when they're buying residential and property is fully furnished, they're like, oh, you know what? I don't have to move anything. I want to just buy it fully furnished and everything. But the seller's actually taking a loss, most likely, on that furniture because they pay probably top dollar when they first bought it in, and now they're just really I don't want to move it, just pay me whatever, it's a fair price. And you were just explaining to me that the same thing happens in build out restaurants that are ready to go. And like you said, a grease trap, $60,000, $70,000. I mean, people that are not in the restaurant business, we don't get those costs because those are mandatory costs. You do need a grease trap.
Look, if you want to serve alcohol and have gaming, you got to build the bar and put the seats in for them to sit at. It's the cost of doing business. It's just like when you go in and you buy the granite and you have it imported from Italy or some type of stone that costs you a fortune. The pool you put in that costs $60,000, you're not going to get that back.
Right.
We consider it the cost of doing business. You need to build it out. You need to put the FF&E in the kitchen, buy the charbroiler that makes the hamburgers that will sell you to make the net income.
Yes.
So
yes, and that's really interesting because again, we know a lot of people that say, you know what, hey, I'm a great cook. Hey, I'm going to be honest. I think I'm a great cook. I'm going to go and open a restaurant, and then all of a sudden, all this list of things come up, and they're like, oh my God, I wasn't aware.
Well, try to get in with the landlord. I mean, it starts with the landlord.
Okay.
If you knock on the landlord's door and say, hey, I think I want to open a business here, they're going to say, how much money do you have in the bank? I want to see 2 years tax returns and 3 months bank statements.
Right.
So if you think you're going to go in and you've got $10,000 in the bank and you're not even going to get your foot in the door with the landlord. So it starts there.
Right. And they don't
really want to work with new business owners.
Right.
Some of them will. I mean, obviously we'll take a chance, but most of them want to see that you've already owned a restaurant or have some type of experience.
Right, because we know for a fact that, and this is a statement, and it's an actual fact. You guys could Google if you want, that 60% of brand new restaurants close their doors within the first year just because they don't have the knowledge on how to run a restaurant. And that is a totally different, statistic out there. And we don't want to discourage anybody, but I say, do your research, right? Really understand.
Follow your dreams, but do your research.
Yeah.
And that's where, traffic counts, demographics come into play. And, you got to make sure you're in an area that you can afford the rent.
Right.
If you're starting out, maybe you don't want to go into $6 a square foot in Summerlin.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, that's right. But you do want to start somewhere, and that is the biggest thing. So let's say that I am a potential buyer. I'm a great cook. I come to you as a consultation.
Are you inviting me over for dinner?
Yes. And I come into you as a consultation. What is that first conversation is going to be like coming from you, especially with all your years of experience, trying to narrow down where I want to be? Because, we all have big dreams. Like you said, I want to own a restaurant in Summerlin, downtown, Summerlin, and everything is like, $8, $9 a square footage. And I haven't really proven myself. How is that conversation coming? So like that, we reduce the time frame of trying to figure out where do I really belong? Because that's the biggest thing, I think. When you're going to become a successful business owner or a restaurant owner, you need to know where you belong within your cuisine, right?
Right. And, and I try to be honest with them. I mean, I don't want to set someone up for failure either.
Okay.
And if I don't feel they're ready, maybe I'll give them a few resources or some ideas of, what they can do to better, prepare themselves to be a business owner.
Correct.
And jump into that arena. But, again, it really comes down to money. How much money do they have to allocate towards this asset or to this project? Because you have a lot of costs you're not thinking about, right? You've got marketing costs. I mean, you're opening a brand new business. You've got a lot of marketing costs. You've got payroll. You've got cost of goods sold. You've got to get yourself set up. All that costs money. You've got business licensing. When you talk to the landlord, you've got to pay first month, last month. You know what I mean? You've got expenses right there. You've got to, that you've got to put out.
Let's talk about that part, the landlord part, right? The renting of this space. They're not giving you month to month.
No.
What are the terms that landlords are really looking for? And, when do you start really becoming or when does it start becoming a negotiable factor when you're looking at term compared to dollars per square foot? Because there is a formula there, right?
There is a formula.
Okay.
My best advice is work with a really good commercial agent. Okay, because those when you're writing a letter of intent from the beginning to lease a space, or you're working with an assignment on a business that already has a lease in place, everything matters. And if you're starting from the beginning, you better have a good agent that knows how to negotiate those terms for you. Because if you don't, you're leaving a lot on the table. Okay, and that's one of the things I teach in my classes is stay in your lane. Because a lot of residential agents, they don't want to lose the commission. Right. They have the client call them. They've never done it before, but they're not willing to give that deal up because they want the commission. Well, you know what? Most likely they're going to end up in a lawsuit. Yeah. Or if they're not, they're still not going to be able to represent their client to the best of their ability because they don't know how, and they don't know what they're leaving on the table. Right. So my advice always to a residential agent is refer it out or jump on board with a commercial agent that will help you and maybe split the deal with them, so you can do some of the work and you can learn at the same time. And I think that learning period is really important, right? It really because you've been selling real estate for 7 years. I mean, you did sell real estate residential for 7-8 years, and then you finally said, hey, I'm going to dab into this. And it's not like all of a sudden you were year one, you were like, oh, this is expert on, on business sales. I mean, there is a learning curve, and you just brought up something that, again, not a lot of the general public listens or hears, which is the letter of intent. What is a letter of intent, and what goes into that to start working on the negotiation for, a lease or something like that? Because a lot of agents that are not doing this type of commercial, they never heard of a letter of intent. Right. And then that's the big difference between residential and commercial is residential, you start with a purchase agreement. Correct. Right? Commercial, you start with an LOI, which is a letter of intent. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's for a lease or to a purchase. Almost 100% of the time, it starts with a letter of intent. Okay. In that letter of intent are the most important terms of the lease. Right. So it may be 15 things that you're addressing, but those 15 things are the most important part of the meat and potatoes in the lease. And then, of course, there's 50 pages to the lease. It talks about insurance, general liability, things that, quiet enjoyment for the lease, things like that. Right. But, if you're working with a good agent, they have to know how to balance what you're looking for. Okay. So if you're coming in and you're going to build out a space that's going to cost you, let's say $400,000, that's what the estimate is, right? what are you going to ask the landlord for? Is it going to be partial rent? Is it going to be partial? You're going to ask for $50 a square foot for TIs, which are tenant improvements. Do you need a blend? Are you going to ask for exclusivity? Are you going to make sure that in advance you're thinking about things like, well, if I ever want to sell my business or sublease this space, I'm going to control how much that transfer fee is now. So there's certain things that if you're not working with a good commercial agent, they're not going to address those for you. So a lot of agents that, again, aren't really in this arena that are trying to do business, they're skipping some of the most important things you can extract. What about asbestos and mold? If they're going to be ripping into a space, and if you thought about that, what about the HVACs? Who's going to take care of those? Or, are they going to be in working condition, or are they going to be on the buyer or the tenant or the landlord? Those are all really important things.
Right. No, definitely, because there's a lot of layers that go in, because this is a breathing building, right? And it's probably been being used for many different businesses. And now you're coming in as a restaurant owner, and you're like, you want to equip it for a restaurant owner. These are important things. Like, who's going to take care if the AC breaks down? Is it a tenant issue, or is it a landlord issue, right? And you're right. If you don't have somebody that's able to represent you to the best to protect your rights, you're gonna be out of pocket for some kind of major repair.
Yeah, or you're gonna get sued because like little things on industrial. Just give you an example.
Please.
If you have a client that needs to do racking, which a lot of industrial users will do racking, if you go up past a certain height, you need sprinklers. You know what sprinklers cost on a building? Hundreds. It could be hundreds of thousands. This isn't like, oh, whoops, I need sprinklers. Let me go get that done. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you make that mistake on, you know what I mean, as the agent, and you don't know that,
who's paying for that? Yeah, because you can't go.
Who's the client going to come back to?
Right. Well, because you just can't go hire a regular plumber to put on, sprinklers overhead.
No.
There has to be a specific.
It costs a lot of money for sprinklers.
Wow, that's right. That's a lot of.
Zoning's a whole nother.
Okay.
Zoning's a whole nother animal.
Right. So you need to know not only how to be able to prepare the correct letter of intent to protect your client. You need to know the rules and regulations, because you said, after a certain height, there are regulations that you need to have sprinklers, and every couple of feet, there has to be a sprinkler head. And I'm pretty sure it gets into a lot of detail. And then zoning, you can't come in and put in a restaurant in a place that is not zoned for a restaurant. And if you're an agent, they're like, yeah, this looks good. There's a restaurant right down the street. You don't know if they probably got special permission for that restaurant, or there's something that they were able to get or rezone for that particular specific property that has a restaurant, but your building is not, and now you have to do extra process, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, look, and even being in the business this long, I'm on the phone with zoning all the time.
Okay.
Because you don't know what you don't know. For an example, speaking of sprinklers, I had a client that she did boarding for animals, for dogs.
Yeah.
And it was a building, she was going into a space on like Flamingo and Decatur, and I showed it to her, it was for lease. It did not have sprinklers. Well, I called zoning and said, hey, this is the use. Is this building going to require sprinklers? And they said no. So we knew at that point it wouldn't. But you have to call and check, because they could have said yes, because it's animals. You do need to have fire sprinklers.
Correct.
And that would have changed the whole deal.
Right.
Had you not known that and gone in and negotiated the deal, and then the client got stuck afterwards with a bill for, 100, 200 grand.
Yeah.
That's
somebody's gonna make a phone call.
Yeah.
Somebody's getting that phone call, actually.
Yeah, but you need to know things about variances and special use permits, about rezoning, and things of that nature.
Let's talk about something as well. Hopefully, it's as simple as the tenant improvement, right? Because everybody's like, "Oh, I'll just come in and just paint the wall and knock down this wall and do this and refurb and everything," but tenant improvement are very specific, again, because there's building codes now involved, right? Yes. And in a commercial building, it's a little bit different than residential, right? Because in residential, if you're the owner, you could come in and tear down the back patio, and because you're the owner, you don't really need to get permit unless you're an HOA. But when you're doing a commercial thing, there are building codes, because the city is the one that's controlling all of that, and they want to know what's going in and what's being taken out. How do we know that the agent is well aware to be able to advise? Because I truly believe, Jennifer, is that you guys don't just become real estate agents. You guys become real estate advisors for that particular client and let them know, say, hey, this is A, B, and C. You make your decision. I'm warning you. If you do this could be you're advising them the best to your knowledge, and they're going to make the last decision regardless. But tenant improvement, how important is to really understand how that tenant improvement factor comes in, where you said you could negotiate with the landlord and saying, hey, it's going to take me 6 months to really get my business going and start really making money. All of that. How can we go ahead and make our people that are listening to the podcast really understand that the tenant improvement is not as easy as everybody seems that think it is?
It's a negotiation.
Okay.
And you've got to be good at, if you to be in our field, you should be really good at negotiating. Otherwise, this probably is not the field for you.
Correct.
But, it really starts with approval from the landlord.
Okay.
So it is blatantly clear, and not even just in the letter of intent, but also in the lease, that it says nothing will be done without the approval from the landlord.
Okay.
It's their space. So everything has to be approved by the landlord.
Okay.
So I don't, when it comes to tenant improvements, I don't give any estimates at all. That's out of my area of expertise.
Correct.
That's when a GC is going to walk in, right? And they're going to give the client an estimate and where they're going to need to just to put a bathroom in is typically like $20,000-$25,000. Yeah. So, and then you have ADA, requirements.
Yeah.
So if you're going to start messing with a building and start tearing things out, there might be new things might not be up to code now, right? Or then won't pass ADA. Maybe it doesn't have the railing in the bathroom, or this isn't wide enough. So the GC is really important in that stage to come in and say, oh no, this isn't ADA compliant. Nope, you need one more bathroom, et cetera. So I step out at that point, but the negotiation starts with me, and negotiating the best deal that I can for my client, whether that's tenant improvements. Maybe it's not. Maybe they don't need tenant improvements. Maybe they just want a few months of free rent.
Right.
Or they want a better deal on the rate. So, and you get these things based on how long of a lease you're going to do, right? So if you're going to give them a 10-year lease, then they will maybe give you a couple $100,000 to build the space out.
Okay.
It's all about how they're going to recoup their money.
Right.
But you can't come in and say, I'd like it for a year and I want 3 months of free rent. And by the way, can I get $5,000 for paint and carpet? There's no way they're gonna
laugh at you.
Yeah, they're gonna laugh at you. Usually you'll start getting something at 3 years.
Okay, so the threshold of good negotiation will be probably 3 years, and that's
at
3 maybe
years, you're going to only get maybe a month free rent.
Okay,
you're not going to get much at a 3 year,
and that's really good, because I think setting up the expectations from the very beginning with the client, because we all think we know what we don't know, right, as a client, and also we all know people, like you said, get a general contractor, because it's important, especially when you're doing tenant improvement. Well, my cousin Paco, he does commercial construction. He could come in and do it. And no, in this type of transactions, you do not need to have somebody that is not an expertise on their field, because, like you said, now you're opening yourself up for a major lawsuit. Because if somebody comes in and moves even a pipe just half an inch one way or half an inch another, you might be out of compliance, and now you have to redo the whole building.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And it's GC's responsibility to know what they're going to need, what compliance is going to look like,
Correct.
When you got the county or the city walking through to do inspections.
Correct. Yeah.
So.
And that's really good to know.
Yeah.
The other thing that we were talking about is, you do also, not only you do restaurants, but also you do industrial, right?
Industrial.
We've seen here in Las Vegas that the warehouse spaces has become very hot commodity, if you want to call that.
State tax.
Please,
no state tax.
Let's talk about that, because I've seen a lot of businesses that they're moving their warehouses here, and they're acquiring, millions,
hundreds of thousands, yes,
of square feet, and it's like people are like
millions of square feet now in Vegas.
Yeah, and people are like, why are they building this many warehouses? Well, because it's a great business.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that, if you can.
Huge conglomerates are coming out here, as we know, like Amazon and other companies, but it makes sense financially for them.
Right.
First of all, we're not the cheapest town by far, but it makes sense for them at the rates we can provide them on a building that's 300,000 square feet. state that meets their needs. And our state is giving them incentives, tax benefits, right? On top of that, there's no state tax as it is. So it really makes sense for huge corporations and companies to come out this way, as you could see what's going on in North Las Vegas and Apex.
Yes, and I was going to say that if you have not driven past, Cheyenne or Craig Road and go past the Speedway,
isn't it?
Go drive.
Yeah.
You will be impressed. Yeah. I was impressed last time that I took a trip. Amazing. It's incredible. Like the buildings are popping like every week.
And we're low on space. I mean, they're getting rented
before they even get built.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
But also, the other thing is that, we're only 4 hours away from Long Beach. Right. So you have a lot of companies that, they get their shipment at Long Beach and they drive 4 hours here. And then we become a distribution hub to, the west side of the United States. And I know that this is something that I've been talking about, and I think finally starting to come to fruition, but Gene Airport is gonna be our industrial airport. FedEx, UPS, Amazon, and everything. So Harry Reid Airport is gonna have more space because they're gonna remove that commercial part of it and put it out there. And Gene is only 35-40 minutes away.
Yep.
So that's a strategic move as well from the city.
Yeah.
Because the city planners are like, oh, this is easy. We could make money here because, like you said, those buildings are being rented before they even come up.
Yeah.
And the square footage, the bigger the square footage, the better the negotiation is, because you get 1 million plus square footage, your dollar per square foot could go down quite a bit, right?
Quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. So let's talk about now again getting back into the restaurant side, or into the business side.
Yeah.
There's many businesses out there that are being bought and sold every day. Clothing boutiques, restaurants, bakeries and stuff like that. How important is location when you're looking to get into a type of business, right? And you mentioned something about, your agent needs to know about demographics and traffic and all of that stuff. Again, residential, we want the least amount of cars going through our neighborhood. Right. How important is traffic to a commercial?
Everything. I mean, frontage is everything. Most of the time, some businesses don't want frontage at all.
Okay.
They're not a retail component. They don't want to be anywhere near, the main roads. But most businesses want to have frontage. They want to be in a shopping center, or a retail shopping center. So it's very important, location. It's always they say location, right?
Right. That doesn't change, right? So again, as a business owner, I'm thinking about, obviously trying to save some money because rent could be a big portion of what my business is going to be paying out. But also you need to make the decision, how much are you willing to spend to be in the right location to have the foot traffic? Because you don't want to be a baker and then hidden all the way in the back of a shopping center.
That's right.
And you want to be seen. And how important it is for people to really understand that coming from the business? Because again, business owners usually start as, hey, I'm a really good cook, I'm a really good baker, I think I could run a business, and they don't know the business side. And then they learn it and it's a steep curve. Well, now all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to own my own, or rent my own building. And that's a totally different, layer of understanding. And those type of things, how difficult or how easy is for people to really understand where your expertise come in and they trust you? Because if I'm gonna work with you, I have to trust your expertise to put me in the best place for my business to be successful, right?
Right. I mean, personally, I've lived in this town since 1978.
Oh, wow.
So I feel pretty confident where I place my clients. And I tell them that, when I sold real estate, I told them I would never, unless, I'm going to tell you straight up, but I would never put you in a place where I personally wouldn't live myself.
Correct.
Right. So, and I'll tell them, this is where you need to be, or this is, but there's businesses they want me to come list it. They're not making it, and I go and it's in a shopping center that I pass by every day. I didn't even know they were in there for 20 years.
Wow.
So it really is important to have the right spot, because even if you're in a good location, but you're in the way back and no one even knows you're in there, you're never going to make it.
Right. So. And then the other thing that you mentioned earlier was that, you were talking about how, your marketing dollars, right? You, even though you do have your own business, you still have to market because you still have to promote it.
Absolutely.
Is that part of the budget that you try to tell the client and say, this is a must. This could not be a maybe. It has to be a must, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the marketing for their business, that's really an arena I don't jump into with them. I let them handle, remind them, what the landlord's going to be looking for.
Right.
The landlord saying, look, the landlord's going to be looking to make sure you have a budget for marketing, payroll, rent, and all the other expenses, cost of goods sold. That's what they're looking for when they're going to look at your bank account, you know what I mean, for the last 3 months. So how much money do you have in the bank?
Right.
Because honestly, my time, just like every other realtor, we sell our time. That's what we sell.
Correct.
And my time is valuable. So, I want to make sure that I'm also working with the right client, not someone that can't perform at the end of the day.
Right. Because again, that's at the end of the day, that's your reputation. Because, you've been in the business for a long time. Right. You know you probably know most of the other commercial real estate agents. You teach classes at the LVR. Most of them that are out there probably went through your class and you taught them as well. So, you're highly respected in the industry and you want to be able to identify that you're going to have a client that's going to be able to perform at the end of the day.
Right. Right, exactly. Most of the people that I should say most, maybe 50% of the agents that I work with, I know them or more personally.
Yeah.
It's really, all the agents I really do know. It's more of the property managers when I'm in the transaction that I don't really know maybe as well. But those, you never want to burn a bridge and you always want to, because the landlord is their God. And in my world, landlord's God. They can kill my deal at any second, and they have. I've lost deals over the landlord.
Really?
Because at the end of the day, if you put a purchase agreement, you have a buyer for your business and you open escrow, because we do hold it in escrow, just like any other purchase. The landlord, they're the ones who have to approve the deal. It's their property. So if they don't like you, or you've given them a hard time, or they don't like your buyer, or they don't like the terms of your deal, they can say no, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Really?
So I'll tell you a terrible story.
Please.
A very popular landlord here in town, and I won't say his name.
Of course.
It was a restaurant, and this family had this restaurant for 30 years or 25 years. It was their legacy, and the parents were old. The kids didn't want to work there. It was their only asset, really, and it was worth a couple $1 million. They did really well.
Right.
The landlord, and when you have an SBA loan, you have to have a total of 10 years because that's what SBA is. It's 10 years. So SBA is not going to give you a 10-year loan unless you have 10 years in place on a lease.
Yes.
Whether that's the first term or a combination of the term and the options that you have, but it has to have 10 years.
Right.
The landlord was such a...
Hold on. I got you. I got you.
That he would not, his own tenants we were like family to him, he killed the deal because he would not give the new buyer one option for 5 years so we can get an SBA loan.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really mean.
That is amazing because again, this is something that we in the general real estate world don't hear about, right?
Yeah,
we hear about difficult sellers and buyers are difficult and everything, but when you have established business, you have a well-represented, you've been in the industry for 30 years, you have a well-name as a restaurant and everything, and just because they feel like, no, we don't want to do this, they kill the transaction. Nope. That's hard.
I had another one. That one was a few years back. This one was just last year. The landlord, every tenant we brought to them, he said no because he knew that if he didn't approve it, then the owner of the business, the restaurant, who just put in $800,000 into his building would have to walk out with nothing, and he'd get to keep all his FF&E. So he purposely did that to his own tenants so he could keep all the FF&E, the improvements and the equipment in the restaurant.
And there's really nothing they could do.
There's nothing we could do. You can try to sue them because it says in the lease that they can't, reasonably withhold.
Right.
But good luck.
Geez, that is crazy. So so that just goes to prove to me again, and I don't know anything about this world, that you must have the right real estate professional representing you, because
and sometimes even then it
just gets out of your hands.
It does. And people say to me all the time, oh, that restaurant, their prices are so high. being in the business, I know it is not, it's because the landlords, it starts with the greediness of the landlord.
Okay.
So the landlord gets greedy, wants so much money, they bleed these poor small businesses out. So they have to increase their prices. So now when you go to get a burger and fries, you know, and it's $15 where it used to be 10, it's because the landlord raised the rent.
That's crazy. That's really,
people don't remember that it's, or don't know, or don't think.
Yeah,
they think
don't
it's
know.
the restaurant. They're greedy. They're just trying to, you know, charge $30 for, you know, chips and salsa. But it started with the landlord.
Wow. That, you know, that's really good information that you bring in, because again, right, it's opening our eyes on how really this business world
that's how
is.
It really works.
Yeah. And like you said, you know, the restaurant owner, they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to survive. They're just trying to pay the rent and make a little bit of money. But you're right. The landlord is the one that's in control.
Right.
And that's scary.
Yeah. You know, because you get into these leases. I mean, I've seen some crazy leases and I'm like, oh my God, did you have an agent when you signed this lease? I mean, did you read it? Did you have an attorney? Like, you know, I can't believe some of the things that these people sign, but it's, I forgot my point, but it's just really, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're talking about how landlord has the control and they're able to pull the strings.
I say that, but most of the time it's pretty seamless.
Right.
So the landlord's in the business. Most landlords are in the business of making money. They want the place to be rented out.
Right.
So if that business owner is struggling, no matter what business it is, they're usually wanting to put a new buyer in there, right? They're going to want to approve the assignment. So those are just rare occasions of situations, but overall,
but they happen.
It's pretty easy to get an assignment as long as they have money in the bank.
Right. And then now let's talk about how, you know, of course, obviously you just mentioned that the landlord is in control of the transaction, right? It's either they have the final yay or nay.
They have the final yay or nay.
Once you come in and you secure the lease and you start actually in there and you set up your business and everything, and what is the responsibility of the landlord for the upkeep of the common areas of the shopping mall and stuff like that? And if they're not upkeeping it, is there anything that, you know, the business owner can do?
So I always say in my next life, I want to be a landlord.
Okay.
And I say that because imagine how sweet this is. You go buy a building, you put your tenants in there, your 5-6 tenants.
Correct.
And they pay literally for everything. Your property manager, your property taxes, your insurance, any improvements you want to do, literally everything down to the dime.
Wow.
They pay. It's called a triple net lease.
Okay.
And I would say, except for office, we find office more like a full gross, modified gross lease, but 90% of it, and even industrial that didn't used to be triple net is now triple net. So everything is triple net now. Most of your leases in Vegas are triple net. So you're paying. I just signed a restaurant and their triple net fees are $3,000 a month just for their cam. Yeah, triple net and cam charges. So, but typically they're about $1,000 a month. You know, that you're on the hook for everything that the landlord incurs on top of your rent. And then on top of that, sometimes the landlord will also put in a clause that says it's called a percentage lease.
Okay.
So if you do more than $2 million in gross revenue, I'm going to take 6% of your gross sales.
Jeez. Wow.
So guess what the restaurant owners do?
They raise the prices. They have to.
No, they fiddle with their profit and loss statements.
Well, it's a cat and mouse game, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, again, right, it's strategy. Is, you know, the landlord, like you said, has full control of it. Now, thinking just outside, I'm a regular person that's listening to the podcast and say, hey, you know what? I want to invest into a commercial space, right?
Yeah.
I want to be a landlord. What kind of requirements do I need to be, and what do I need to know before? Because I might have, you know, I don't know, $300,000 that my dad and my mom left me, you know, as an inheritance, and I need to learn I need to know how to figure out how to invest it. And you should say being a landlord is the best thing. What are the pros and cons of doing that or becoming a landlord if you're not 100%, you know, been doing it for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of the time it's about the cap rate.
Okay.
So I'll just give you an example.
Please.
If you have a Starbucks.
Okay.
Starbucks, right, they're great tenants. They're in there, they're signing 30-year leases, 50-year leases. They're going to pay for the rent. You're not going to get 6%, 7%. You're going to get 4.5%, 4%. Why? Because it's, it's more of a conservative play. You're not going to get anything more than 4.5%, but you also know that it's safe, right?
It's a long
you're
term.
You're not going into a shopping center that you're purchasing where they're mom and pops. Maybe you can get 5, 6, 7%, but you're taking a risk. You don't know whether they're going to make it or not, et cetera. So it goes kind of in line with what your tolerance is as an investor.
Okay.
So we used to be able years ago, every investor wants at least a 6% cap rate.
Okay.
Vegas is not that way anymore. So it's hard to find even a 6% sometimes. Most of them are 4, 5%, 6, but they're not 7, 8, 9 like they used to be.
So if you're getting a 4% cap rate, that's something that is normal. Let's say you could get
on
5.
An asset that's a national tenant.
Okay.
You're going to find that more in national tenants,
Okay.
like a Starbucks.
Like a Starbucks.
If you can tolerate a little bit more, then you're going into a shopping center with mom and pops, you might be able to get 6%.
Okay, but you're again, but again, you're saying you're running the risk of the turnaround rate that maybe every couple of years somebody's moving out, and
then you're paying a real estate. You're paying 2 realtors to come in to renegotiate. It's just like a rental. If you're going to go rent your house, you have to pay the realtor, right? You have to pay the same.
Yeah.
So those expenses incur. But and if you have it sitting vacant, right, then
that's not good.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, the other thing is that, and again, it just popped up into my head is, the national, brands, right? You just brought up Starbucks. I know that Dutch Brothers is building unbelievably here and everything. Those type of businesses that are national brands, they know what they're doing. So they're kind of come in and tell you kind of like, hey, this is what our terms are, because they're doing a 30-year lease, like you said, a 15-year lease. So they're literally beating you down or negotiating you down with the term, because, you're not going to get a mom and pop unless they're really secure to say, I'm going to sign you a 15-year lease. So they know that leverage is there. What is a good percentage in a in a commercial building or a commercial space to have, maybe 1, 2 major brands and then the rest mom and pop, so you could kind of offset? Because there has to be something where you could negotiate, right?
If you're lucky.
Okay.
It's all about where you're positioned and how your lot is, how it's set up, For example, if you're familiar with the corner of Flamingo and Rainbow.
Yes.
Okay, so back, in the 80s, 90s, those parking lots were huge and there was no businesses. Well, since then, they have kind of built buildings onto or into, baked into those parking lots now.
Right.
So like Starbucks just built a new building.
Yes.
Well, a lot of those, and I don't know about that specific one, but those are called ground leases, a lot of them.
Okay.
And what a ground lease is like, let's just say you have a piece of land, but it's frontage, it's Flamingo and Rainbow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say.
Right.
And you have Starbucks, they come to you and go, we love your land. We want to build a Starbucks on it. We're going to build our own building and we'll leave it when we're done with our lease. You can have it, but we're only going to pay you. So we're going to lease the land from you.
Right.
So it's slightly less than what you would pay a landlord on a triple net lease, with the building itself. So they're going to be building the building, but they're going to pay less on a land lease per se.
Right.
But some of those leases say that they don't get the building, they're going to tear it down because Starbucks is very specific, right? So they're not going to leave a Starbucks building for you to rent out to somebody else. So it'll say maybe in there, and then in 30 years when we're done, we're going to pummel this building.
So you really have to know what you're doing, what you're getting yourself to, because again, right, they know what they're doing, right? I mean, one of the things that I've learned, and I know everybody has probably watched the movie, the McDonald's movie. Right, where they talk about
Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks.
Where they talk about how McDonald's is not really in the burger business; they're in the real estate business.
That's right.
Because they do a lot of that, right? They come in and say, "Hey, we want to lease your land for 99 years, and then after that, we're going to tear the building down." And so it's come. You mentioned also that in your expertise, you do land, like land. There's a parcel right here. I don't know if you know about it, on Jones and Sunset, just on the on the southeast corner of Jones and Sunset. It's up right now. It's 18.5 acres in there. How important or to know what kind of shopping center you could put there, because you do have on the south side, you have that freeway back end, so there's no entrance from the freeway. You have Jones coming down there, so there's like literally an L section that you could not really. You could probably use that Jones entrance to come in, but when you're looking to purchase land, how important it is to really have a good developer that's going to say this is the best usage for this specific parcel, because you're buying 18.5 million acres. I don't think that's going to be, $100,000, right?
No,
right now, more or less, kind of like what is the average per acre?
About $1 million an acre.
Really?
In that area, yeah. Could be more. A few things about land. First of all, your ingress and egress, which is your in and out.
Okay, yes.
Is very important, right? But here's the thing I teach in one of my classes.
Okay.
This is where you can get into the most trouble, is land.
Okay.
It sounds simple.
Yes.
It is not. Why? Because I just told you $1 million is for 1 acre. Do you think 1 acre is actually usage?
Right.
No, because you might have to put gutters, sidewalks, city lights in, things, maybe there's berms or areas that you can't use. You're not going to know that unless you get a phase 1, which is, get out there, get a survey done and find out how much is usable. So when you're negotiating and you're commercial, if you're a residential agent trying to jump in a deal and you don't know these things, you're going to sell, you're going to buy you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might be an acre, and by the time you figure it out, it might be 0.73 that's actually usable.
Yeah, that's right. Because a lot of these vacant lands have natural washes that you could. They're very.
And if you're the first one in, JC, then you're going to spend the most money. The city's going to make you put in the street lights, the gutters.
Yes, I have noticed that the city makes the landlord do all the gutters, the sidewalks, the street lights, and everything
on your property.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's insane. But that's part of what.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, again, if you're a real estate agent that like, hey, I'm a residential, I got this commercial buyer that wants to come in, is going to buy an acre land and everything, and you don't know really all those extra things that you should be disclosing, you might be getting a phone call from somebody that says what happened, right?
And you know what, and that's not my area of expertise, not the land part, but the development.
Right.
If you start talking to me about, I'll sell you the land, but you start talking to me about developing it, that's not my arena.
Right.
That's where I'm going to refer you out to a developer or GC or somebody else that can assist you. That is, an architect, that is not my arena.
Right.
So.
And that's the other thing, right? That you, as being so in depth in this industry, in being so long in the real estate side as well, you already make connections with GCs and architects and all of this stuff that you could say, hey, look, I'm willing to buy the land, but what can I do with it? You're like, oh, you know what? Talk to this person. I'm not going to give you my advice because again, right? You don't want to get yourself into that hole, but also you do have the people that could answer those questions for your potential buyer. Correct. And that is really important, because then all of a sudden now you're being the connector. You're connecting that buyer with all the people that they really need to make the decision to say, yes, this is the best transaction that I can. How important is for people, again, right, to really understand what they're getting themselves into, because if $1 million an acre, I mean, even if it's a 3 acre parcel, that's $3 million. But like you said, maybe they're only able to use 2.5 acres out of that, and they're thinking they're getting the whole thing. So it becomes very important for them to be well educated as well in what they're doing. How important is also for the buyer to really understand, because sometimes we get some stubborn buyers, let's be honest, especially when we're dealing with people with money. They're like, no, I could make this happen, and I could go to the city and change the ordinance, and like, it's not that easy.
Right.
How important is to also make that buyer understand that that it could be a difficult transaction if they keep on thinking the way they're thinking?
I mean,
I know that's a loaded question.
It's a tough question to answer. I put everything in writing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If I call down to the city, like for example, this might digress from your question, but we were looking at a piece of land over on the east side of town. And when I called zoning, and I said, well, what else about this parcel do you think I need to know? And the Clark County, they told me, oh, this is in a flight restricted area, so you can only build up to 35 feet.
Right.
Right. So you got to ask them. So I sent an email to the client saying, hey, per this person at Clark County zoning, they said this. So I documented what I know about the property. So they can't ever come back and say, no, you sold me this and I told you I wanted to do this on it. And no.
Right.
Because it's not my responsibility. First of all, it's not the agent's responsibility to verify any of that information.
Correct.
Period.
Right.
But if you're a good agent, you need to verify it. You should be calling zoning. But also, telling the client, you need to call to verify this information. But as a courtesy, I did call down there and I spoke with this person and they said this. But I would recommend you call as well.
Just to verify.
Right, just to verify.
Now let's put on your teacher hat, right? You're teaching classes and the LVR. You have agents that are coming in and saying, hey, I really want to explore a little bit more about this. What are the do and don'ts that you teach the agents and saying, look, as you're getting started, you could do this, but definitely do not do that because you want to set them for success. And, right. I believe that you're one of those people that want to continue to duplicate agents like, successful agents like yourself. That's why you went into teaching, because you want to have people that actually know what they're doing in this industry, in this part of the real estate. So what are the do and don'ts that you literally grind on those agents during your classes? So, if there's any agents listening out there, they're like, you know what, maybe I should attend this class because, it is very interesting and I want to learn.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I feel very, very strongly about this. If you don't have the forms, you're probably not equipped to do the deal.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
Period. It's very simple. If you don't have the forms to do a commercial deal or a business act deal,
right.
You're probably not in a position you should be doing the deal.
Okay.
Okay. I feel very strongly about that.
Okay.
So, and I also, as I said before, and I teach my students this, if you're not in the business and you're not wanting to give that commission up, you need to some degree, either you refer it out or you get someone that's willing to work with you in your office and you guys, so you can, make sure that you're not making any mistakes.
Right.
But, I also teach ethics.
Okay.
So I see a lot of the cases that, as we all do, that go, to the commissioners and they're just simple mistakes.
Right.
That could have been if you just, and we deal with a lot of greed. When it comes to money, people get greedy and they can't see past, what's on the other side.
Agree. And
sometimes the check for the 10 grand that you think that you're going to miss, it's not worth it. Especially when it comes to land, or playing an arena, you just don't know. And I've had, in my own company, because we're a big company, I've had, colleagues call me or agents in the office go, I'm going to try to do this deal. Can I use one of your forms? And I'm like, no. And you should take one of my classes because you should not be doing this business.
Right. Right. So talk to me about the forms, because that's obviously something very important in this transaction. You just can't go to Google and say, hey, can you, write me up a commercial transaction, purchase agreement, because no, you don't want to do that. There are very specific forms governed by the...
Well, no, actually the opposite, JC. So we consider commercial to be wild, wild west.
Okay.
There's no actual form. Everyone does their own. Everything's different.
Okay.
There's one nationally recognized form. This is the closest thing to, let's say, what the realtors use when, for residential.
Yeah.
And that's called air CRE, air forms, which is a contracts class that I do teach.
Okay.
I do teach on air forms. And that's a nationally recognized company. So you can go to air forms. It's not cheap. And you can download and then you pay tokens for, and they have not business acquisition, but every form for commercial, sublease, lease, buy, whatever you ever wanted to do, there's a form for it in their library. And that's the closest thing we have to a real form.
But the reality of the business is everybody does their own form. Yeah. Or they'll negotiate their own contracts.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And everyone, again, most of our business starts with a letter of intent. Now, most letter of intents, when they go back and forth, they've got the same things on there at this point, right? We're negotiating the same. Some have different points, but most of them are the same, So it's pretty uniform that way.
Right. That's really interesting because, again, right, you want to get into it, especially if you're a residential agent that comes in and happens to just come across somebody that says, hey, I want to purchase land, and you're like, yeah, I could do this, and you're looking at the financial part of the transaction. They said, hey, I'm going to be able to make that X amount of dollars just on a land deal. And, what can go wrong? It's just dirt. But obviously, you've stated that a lot could go wrong if you don't know what you're doing.
That's right.
And you don't want to put yourself in that scenario. So I know that also not only you teach, but and that's how you and I met, because I was at a Berkshire Hathaway meeting and you were talking about, hey, you know what, if you guys want to do this, partner up with me, I'm willing to help you guys and educate you. And then, talking a little bit further, you teach at the LVR. The LVR has a organization. They have a committee that does commercial, right?
It's not a committee.
Okay.
We're actually a board.
Okay, so talk to me about that.
Yeah, so
please.
it's so most people don't realize it, and I talk about this all the time because I go into other brokerages, and it surprises me because this is Las Vegas Association of Realtors is it's our association,
exactly.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, we own that association. We own the building, and there's two sides to LVR. We have the residential side, which houses 15,000 plus realtors. We also have Commercial Alliance Las Vegas, which is the same organization, but we have 600, almost 600. Wow. Now, I've sat on that board for 5 years. I'm actually past president. So I was president last year, and I also sat on our Las Vegas Association Board of Realtors as a director because we have a seat on that board.
Right.
But that organization is, it's near and dear to my heart. Education is where, is what's important to me. And as president last year, and as coming in as president-elect the year before, that has really been my focus for the last 3 years is education. Because for commercial agents, when we have CE, which we need so many classes every 2 years to be able to renew our license, we're stuck taking residential CE classes,
which
we don't want to learn about solar and home inspection.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, we need agency, and we need law, and we need contracts, but it's residential.
Right.
So I took it upon myself because we didn't have any commercial trainers. I said, well, you know what? Why don't I put my foot where my mouth is and go write a class?
Good for you.
So I didn't realize that it happens to be my new niche, and I found out I'm really good at teaching.
Awesome.
So education is really important. I've written 4 classes. I'm about to turn in my 5th class.
Wow.
And, we really want to give back to the commercial agents and hope they'll come support CALV and learn things from us, whether you're commercial or not. It's always good to have some type of knowledge so you can collectively talk and intelligently speak to your client. Even though you're not a business broker, you can take a business broker 101. You can go, oh, well, you know what? I can refer you to a great agent. It doesn't necessarily have to be me. It could be any agent, right? But I do know, if I took this class, and I do know that if you want an evaluation on your business, they're going to ask you for 3 years financials.
Right.
Or I learned all this about a new lease, even though, I don't really do commercial. So now I know, all of these new things that I've learned in class. So.
And that just goes to prove what you just said right now, that knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Yeah.
If you're a real estate agent that only does residential and you start dabbing yourself into these classes, you just become more knowledgeable. Not that you're going to become an expert, or maybe this is not what you want to do, but now you have a little bit more knowledge within yourself to be able to direct the right, to connect the people, right? Hey, I have somebody that wants to buy land. I know the right agent that wants to do that. I know that these are the things that I could kind of like let you know to get prepared of, but I'm going to pass you along to the correct agent that's going to help you with that. And that is really important. And I applaud you for that, because I know that being part of an organization and you being in a leadership role, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of, dedication. But I see that you're very passionate of what you do. And, this is something that I really, liked about, talking with you, and I said, you know what, I have to do a podcast with Jennifer, because she's just so passionate about the commercial side that nobody really talks about,
right.
And it's like, we know it's out there, it happens, but it's kind of like in the dark. And no, I wanted to make sure that people know that we do have professionals that care, that are passionate, that are willing to share, that are willing to educate other agents. And if you're an agent out there that it's wanting to get into this, call Jennifer. I'm pretty sure she's going to guide you and tell you what classes to take and where do you come and join the community. So like that, you could start making those connections, because at the end of the day, it's about connections.
It's about connections. And here's what will surprise you, JC, is, which if you are not known in the commercial industry, they will not answer your phone call. And I'm not kidding.
Okay.
So if you want to call, if you see, if your client wants 2,000 square feet of office space and you go call these agents and you get their voicemail, leave a message, if they don't know who you are, they're not going to call you back.
Wow.
It is the old boys club.
Right.
Okay. And if you're not in it, you're not going to get a call back, period.
Wow.
So it took me a long time to, become a household name.
Yes.
People know who I am now. They want to do business with me. But a long time ago, 20 years ago, it's a tough industry to break into, even with colleagues.
Right.
Because starting with the colleagues, because they're not going to call you back if they don't know who you are.
Right.
And if they know that you're residential, they don't even want to deal with you.
Right.
Even if you have a client for their property.
Right.
So it's very much, it's a hard industry to break into. But once you're in. You're in.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's really awesome. You're not going to believe this, but the hour is gone.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I want to personally thank you for coming in and sharing your expertise. I love this. I think definitely we could set it up for our next episode to talk about a little bit more in detail. I know you brought your stats and we didn't even talk about stats, so we could definitely set it up that way. But I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, but, I think this is important, not only for me as a, marketing rep for a title company, because, you and I talked about how title and escrow work, but you're like, dude, this is totally different. It's not residential escrow. It's
Right.
commercial escrow is totally different. You have to be an expertise and everything. So maybe next time we could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to say thank you for taking the time and educating me and also my audience. So again, Jennifer, give me your first name, last name, company, how people could get a hold of you if there's anybody out there that's looking to get your advice on any commercial or even restaurants out there that want to purchase or businesses, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And JC, thank you again for having me. And for everyone that's listening, my name again was Jennifer Weineberg. I'm with Berkshire Hathaway. My phone number directly is 702-326-1055. I'm always here to help. As he said, I'm very passionate about education and helping all my other fellow colleagues. So call me anytime.
Awesome. And then also talk to me a little bit, because we got some time, about your CE classes and your involvement with the LVR. How can people find you? How can they, become part of the organization? All of that stuff, please.
So if you go to the education calendar and the LVR in our website there, you'll see my name and you'll see the commercial classes. They're in a different color, but we do have typically 2 to 3 classes a month.
Okay.
And I do teach at least 1 class a month.
Nice.
So please come. You'll learn a lot. We have some great instructors, and it's something different. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. I am affiliate member of the LVR, obviously, because I'm in the title and escrow.
Right.
Can I attend one of these classes, or is it only for
you
real?
can attend, but I don't think you get. Obviously,
I won't get the credit. I know.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I really do think it's fascinating. We are one of the fastest growing cities in the West Coast. And if you don't know about commercial and you don't know about business and everything, you're doing yourself a disservice, because
it's true.
We're just built. And now we're starting to go up. Right, we're starting to have a whole bunch of condominiums that are coming online and a whole bunch of projects.
Mixed use, but I will tell you, land on this. LA used to be, we're at the hub of the most expensive. We're more expensive than LA is now.
Are we really?
Yes, we are.
Wow, that's good to know. Well, you know what? We'll end in that.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll be setting up the next episode here.
Sounds great.
You got it. My name is JC Castillo, and you could go ahead and get a hold of me outside of the air at 702-416-4302, 702-416-4302. Please remember that you, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, have the right to choose the title company. So if you want to have equity title close your transaction, let me know. Send me a text message. Put in your message in the chat. If you like the show, give us a thumbs up. If you don't like it, let us know why, and we'll definitely go ahead and change it for you. But I really appreciate you. We'll be here for the next episode, and take care of each other. See you later.